Today's guest, Dr. Stefan Ebener, Google's AI spokesperson in Germany, a keynote speaker, university lecturer, and someone who's not just surfing the AI wave. No, he's actively helping shape this future and shape customers. He leads a specialist organization at Google Cloud, solving the toughest problems across industries, from cybersecurity to AI, from sovereign infrastructure to data-driven decisions. Sounds like buzzwords, but in these fast-pacing worlds, there is a lot of fundamental architecture needed. There is the new hype topic, vibe coding. It's cool, but maybe not enterprise ready. There is the topic recursive self-improvement and the big question, like, where is this all heading? So we talked about the thesis, what is in 10 years today? Are there no business applications anymore? Are there only large language models? How do we get there? So like big questions, but let's start step by step. Stefan, I would like to ask you, when you work in your daily business, daily operations, what do you think is, in your experience, the thing that most of other tech leaders don't see or don't agree the same way as you do?
Yeah, so first of all, Mark, thanks for the invitation. And I think it's a very good question. So the point a bit for the moment is, like, we are moving into that agentic era, and it has a fundamental shift in one specific topic that most of people are not aware, maybe not aware at the moment, is so far, every time we using AI, in whatever case, there was always that trigger point, right? So you prompt or you ask a system to do something, or maybe there was a trigger from a different system where an anomaly was just detected, and then you want to do something like that. So with that agentic era, we are moving away from, let's say, the reactive part of the trigger points into a proactive world. So that means that the root agent or any kind of agent can start doing something on their own. And that's why also the heavy investments of the big tech providers are done, because the utilization of all the infrastructure in the infrastructure, like the TPUs or the GPUs sessions, are much more utilized because you have an ongoing thing to do. Instead of just waiting for a trigger that then a system is actually doing something. And that's the paradigm shift we see for the moment, from the reactive into the proactive part, into a continuous action of agents.
Let's have a look at the underlying problem. So when we look at today's enterprises out there, there's often the topic about agility, moving fast, and the topics you mentioned, for some of them, is it really far away? So what do you think is the underlying problem that we have to be aware of?
Yeah, so I think for the moment, a lot of the discussion, let's say in daily press or in our environment, is about who is leading, for example, in the LLM arena at the moment, right? And the time frame between two different new models, where they are getting published, then tested, and getting on top of the leaderboard, that is going, or is declining more and more. So the frequency of new models, of updates of models, just rocket climbing over time, right? So, but for a company, you need to stick to a model, right? So you need to make a decision at a certain point. And that's why also my recommendation to everyone is always first start with the fundamental work. And the fundamental work means that you create an architecture, an AI architecture for a whole pipeline that's really robust, with the monitoring, with the benchmarking of the models, where you also have the input and the output testing, these kind of things. And then where you were able to just test very simply the new model, you might think that it's performing better on your specific use case without having, or without the need of changing the whole architecture. And if you think about that, because you don't know, you can't forecast what is the next model next year or even in 2 weeks, if this is beneficial for your use case or even not. You need to spend really a lot of time in that, what I said, robust architecture below the model to be extremely flexible with everything you have or you might have in your mind.
So you're pointing out like you need a fast way of moving today's agents. Maybe in a few years there is something else, but it still needs fast adoption. But you also pointed out the use cases. So how do you recommend that you identify the right use cases? Because what I see is a lot of companies, they do use case after use case, then they die and they do the next use case. So they don't get over this kind of tipping point of making it value add and beneficial for the company.
Yeah, I think the point here is a bit that a lot of people think of AI in the sense of a tool, and that's fundamentally wrong, right? Because a tool does not give you any value in a company, maybe a bit, but not that big values you're looking for. And here I would say it's the same like every IT product or solution in the past. There are always two options, right? It's top line growth or bottom line savings. So if you introduce an AI in your company and it's not hitting one of them, why should you spend money on it? Right? In an ideal situation, you have a situation where the new system you're trying to introduce is actually beneficial for both. So, for example, let's say you're first of all looking for bottom line savings. Let's say you're a manufacturer, right? So you're trying to do the classical, let's say, IoT stuff. So collecting a lot of sensors, doing predictive maintenance, trying to bring down, for example, the costs of your repairs, maybe even the waste of stuff you need for your machines is going down. So you have an actual saving in your operations. So bottom line savings. Then you can use that money to invest in top line growth. Let's say the manufacturer is producing something. He's now even moving into 3D printing with, let's say, some sort of metals. And you're going away from a standard manufacturer who's just doing mass. And now you can bring down the lot size to one, making individual sizes. Now you're a high-tech company who is actually serving the market with highly customized pieces. And then you can also make a different price, maybe a different service. So now you have a top line growth. And that combination, that I would say is the ideal part.
Talking about this value, you are living and working at the forefront of innovation, so you see what's coming. What is the recommendation for, like, let's say, companies and other product and tech leaders out there, if they have to navigate in this space? I mean, what can you do to really feel and operationally work on those efficiency gains, like talking about vibe coding? What could you do today to really make it enterprise ready? Is it enterprise ready, or what's your take on it?
Yeah, vibe coding is a nice example. It's funny that you're talking about that because that's quite a, let's say, a buzz out there in the current market, right? I think it's a bit of a paradoxon that we are looking at, right? First of all, I would encourage everyone that the opinion you maybe gained over the last, let's say, months, you actively have to reframe that today, and you have to reframe it in 1 month. Because I'm with you. Vibe coding for 4 weeks or maybe even today, is it enterprise ready? Definitely not. Makes it serious mistakes? Absolutely. Is it robust? Is it secure? I don't think so. However, and this is the paradoxon, we don't think, or you should not think linear anymore, right? So what we, for example, see with the vibe coding approach is we don't give a prompt or a task to a single model. So we ask 10 different models in parallel to do the same task. And then you have like a supervisor model that is specifically trained for security gaps. There's another model that is specifically trained, let's say, for your terminology in your company, like naming convention, these kind of things. There's another model testing for whatsoever. So then the combination of that makes the output a totally different one. And what you already mentioned is with the recursive self-improvement, this is a bit like the steam machine, right? So when the steam machine was introduced, it was not ready for the market, but it produces 24 by 7, 365 days a week. And I think this is also what we currently see, the self-improvement, the recursive self-improvement of these kind of models helps you by just trying to again and again make better code, write faster. And there are actually really nice systems that, for example, directly integrate with your GitHub, looking for mistakes in your code, helping troubleshooting, checking out new versions, doing a lot of the stuff a typical developer is doing. We just released some of these things at Google I/O. It's called Joules. And if you look and what the system is capable to do, I'm blown away by the skills and even the technology below that. And I think that will revolutionize definitely wipe coding. And as I already mentioned, wipe coding today is not the wipe coding you have in 4 weeks or in 6 weeks. So it's accelerating like hell.
You talk about Joules, which is, as you said, it's not like a code completion tool anymore. It's like asynchronously and kind of autonomously allowing the developers to delegate these coding tasks. I mean, this is hard to imagine how this could change everything. What do you think makes it with the software engineer? What's happening here right now?
Yeah, I think there are some of the tasks that are just getting offloaded, and this is once again the thing that we discussed in the beginning of that podcast, like proactive agents. And Jules is also an agent somehow, right? So it helps you by tasks that you typically would do on yourself in the background and continuously checking if you're doing the things right. And I think it fundamentally changes the way a developer just works. I'm not saying it will replace the developer. I don't think that we are at that area. I don't think if you're really being on a cutting edge project that your creative thinking and the way you approach new ways to solve a problem will be easily replaced. But indeed, like standard routines or just debugging of something, I mean, all the test routines you have to run through, perfect example of Jules, right? He will do the job for you. And you're just looking at the output, looking for, okay, do we need to make a different unit tests, for example, or maybe giving it directly into the commit phase. So I think that the general work is changing rapidly and we need to adopt it and we can adopt it. But whenever you have used such a system, and I'm talking here from myself, you never want to do it without that. And I mean, this is maybe you remember the first time you worked with code completion. Whenever you have adopted that, you don't want to miss it anymore.
Yeah. Is it something like we're moving to those kind of orchestrator level? We are becoming more like, I don't know, maybe overviewing evals and then checking out if it works. Is this the change which is happening right now, or do we have a little bit of time to adapt? What's your take on that?
It's always very hard to foresee the future. I think the pace in the market, because also of the increasing competition. So honestly speaking, Google isn't the only leader in AI anymore. You know that. So I think, but this is a very good thing because accelerating technology always happens when tough competition is out there in the market. So I personally think that's a good thing. But it's pretty hard to see how fast we are moving into that direction. And I mean, if you have seen the latest press from the last couple of days, where Apple is releasing a paper with, let's say, mixed content, where they say, hey, LRMs, so large reasoning models, are not that great. so they make stupid mistakes, don't go into that direction. So I think there's a lot of work to do, but I personally try to not make that solution space too large. So I look for my specific use cases I'm trying to solve. So for example, that coding, that debugging, that commit check-in, these kind of things, and then look, okay, which tool can help me at the moment and which is good enough to solve me time. Right. And I would never use a coding agent for helping me by serving my breakfast or giving me examples of a healthy breakfast. So I think, and there we're mixing up a lot of different topics, and I don't think that this is the right approach. But if you are in a, let's say, narrowed down use case, I think there are a lot of tools that already could do the job good enough. And as I said, the quality is improving exponentially.
I like this kind of reality check you just brought in. So it's like, yes, the world is fast pacing, but it's still like a business we have to maintain. It's like the existing enterprise. So it's not going to be changed overnight. So what would you recommend to start it? Because if you do a reality check in Europe, not so many companies are really deep into AI use cases, and a lot of companies haven't reached this little step yet. What do you recommend how you get there? What's the initial ignition needed?
Yeah, so I mean, let me bring it down to the economical value, right? So if they think about introducing a new system or maybe replacing something, or even just looking for productivity gains, it's really about having an open mind for how can we use solutions in the AI space to adopt to that, right? And then identify these kind of quick wins early, and then just try to get experience and then move slowly on. But I think it's the important part is always finding that starting point. Typically, an AI project doesn't start with code or with a model. It's more like the typical thing, paper and pen, so to say, are really looking for where do we have that economical impact to the company where it's really helping us.
Sticking to your learnings, to your practical experience, when you do this kind of strategy and then the first steps, then you still need to have a big vision and a kind of a mission how to get there. And when we talked before, you said, hey, there is companies, they have these bold thesis that in 10 years today, there is no business applications anymore.
Yeah, so this is a pretty interesting thing. I mean, if you're talking with front runners in the industry, they have all kind of crazy ideas. And sometimes there come a thesis along, like, for example, replacing all of the business applications like, let's say, Salesforce, SAP, or Oracle CRM systems with LLMs, because they can do more or less everything. They can store data. Sometimes our job is also to really look with a deep tech approach into that thesis, the hypothesis, and looking for, is that something that we can solve together? Is it really a way forward? And with that specific example, that was funny because it might sounds awkward in the first beginning, but then if you think a bit more about that, how many or how much data an LLM can actually store and remember. So I think that the idea wasn't that bad. What we actually tried to do is like a reality check. So we had three different pillars where we said, okay, let's say to achieve that 10-year goal, there could be something like a very simple prompt engineering where you store a lot of your actually data and re-inject it every time. Then there could be that idea of fine tuning without forgetting. So you adopt your foundation model actually with all the kind of information in a large context window. So, for example, we already have proven that Gemini can store up to 10 million tokens. And so that means a lot of the data that the customer potentially have fits into the context window, actually, right? And this is just the beginning. We are also keen to demonstrate that we even can store more of the data in a context window. And then the last one was like really a retraining of a foundation model with all the information you currently have. And I mean, then you need to sort out how much does it cost, how long does it take, and actually what is the effort you have to put into that, right? And I mean, obviously the easiest one and the cheapest one is like prompt engineering, and then that fine tuning without forgetting is a bit more of an effort, but also cost intense. But then I mean, retraining a model, a large language model, typically takes up to 6 months to get into a version where you think, okay, that really makes a difference. And I'm not talking about retraining of just like the first percent, right? So it's about more like retraining of 30, 40, 50% of a model. And that's huge effort. It just is also using a lot of your architectural power. So you need a lot of GPU power or TPU power. So not that easy. At the end, I mean, we were able to demonstrate that the idea is something that we really could make happen or could realize. The question is, or the underlying question is it then really as good as, for example, I don't know, let's say the CRM of Oracle, right? Is it really something that a customer would use in that way? Or is it just like from the implementation efforts and the costs too expensive to really go that way? And what are really the benefits out of that? And it was actually a lot of fun thinking about that and then looking into the technology and how we can proceed with that.
Yeah, very interesting. Hey, I have a last question. And you've been on both sides. So you were advising CXOs, you were navigating internal platform politics, and now you are really like the team you have currently or you see is definitely not the one which are like the old-fashioned one. So what do you advise to get everybody up and running in the same direction? And how do you really lead through this time when we just talked about this big vision, what's going to happen when no one knows what's coming?
Yep.
And everybody said like, hey, this is the direction, let's go together. What do you advise to get your team on board and run together?
The most important thing is you need to have a shared or a common vision. So what the future looks like, right? And that is not always ultimately to using technology X or Y or Z. It's more about like, this is the direction we both or we all want to go. And then clearly breaking down what is the benefit for everyone, for the different teams, how they can have an impact, and then openly discuss. And there is often a lot of different opinions. But you have then the time where you say, okay, let's say the discussion time is now over. Let's commit to a certain solution or a certain vision and then move on, right? And I think having an active discourse is a very important thing, not only in our society, also within companies. I'm not saying that everything is always basic democratic. But you need that discourse to find that common vision.
Thank you very much for showing us the insights of your daily operational work. Where can people find you if they want to engage with you and Google?
You can always reach out on LinkedIn. I'm happy to see your request and getting your message. And yeah, thanks again for the nice talk, Mark, and the invitation.